You're tuned in to Beyond the Known. Tonight, we turn our gaze to a small cluster of stars that should have been insignificant, barely visible against the endless canvas of the night.
And yet somehow they are everywhere.
Exactly. The Pleiades appear in the songs of the Greeks, in the calendars of the Maya, in the rituals of Mesopotamia, in the stories of Japan, and even in the dream time of Australia's first peoples.
Civilizations separated by oceans and centuries, all seemingly drawn to the same faint sparks of light. It's really quite remarkable.
It is. Why? Were the stars simply too beautiful to ignore, or is there something, deeper at play?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Over the course of this episode, we'll wander through the extraordinary myths these stars inspired. We'll touch the edge of some pretty fringe theories that suggest hidden connections, maybe even something otherworldly.
And we'll balance those mysteries with the steady voice of science, asking why these seven stars, specifically, command such power over the human imagination.
By the end, we may not have all the answers, but hopefully we'll be closer to understanding why the Pleiades have followed humanity like a shadow through time. Let's begin with the basics. What exactly are the Pleiades?
Okay, so astronomically speaking, the Pleiades, it's also cataloged as M45 is what we call an open star cluster. It's relatively young, very bright.
And where do we find it?
It's located in the constellation Taurus. People often describe it as being on the shoulder of the bull. And honestly, it really is one of the most, stunning things you can see in the night sky.
What makes it stand out so much for just, looking up?
Well, its visual prominence is key. Under
Yeah.
decent conditions, clear skies, it's easily visible to the naked eye. Even with a bit of city light, you can often spot it. So it's become one of the most recognized star groupings pretty much everywhere.
Right, so it's not a single star like Sirius or something, but a whole group. What does open star cluster actually mean? What are we seeing?
Good question. So an open cluster is basically a group of stars, could be hundreds, sometimes thousands. They all formed from the same massive cloud of gas and dust around the same time.
Like siblings.
Kind of, yeah. And they're still loosely bound together by gravity, not as tightly packed as, say, a globular cluster, but still a family. And they tend to be young stars.
And the Pleiades are young.
Cosmically speaking, yes. Very young. We estimate them to be about 100 million years old, which sounds like a lot, but in the lifespan of the universe, that's pretty recent.
Okay. And the stars themselves, what are they like?
A lot of them are hot, blue, incredibly luminous stars, though there are also plenty of dimmer, redder stars in there too, like red dwarfs. But the really striking thing, that sort of ethereal, misty look they have.
Yeah, that hazy quality.
Right. That's actually not just the starlight itself. It's mostly what's called a reflection nebula. Essentially, the light from those bright blue stars is illuminating leftover dust from the original cloud they formed in. That's what creates that beautiful blue haze you see, especially in photos.
That explains the Shimmering Sisters vibe perfectly. Now, when people talk about the Pleiades, the name Seven Sisters comes up almost immediately. But is that actually what we see? Because sometimes when I look, I feel like I'm counting fewer than seven, maybe six.
And you're not alone. That's exactly where the science meets the, let's say, human fascination. It's a really critical point.
How so?
Well, with modern telescopes or even good binoculars, we can see way more stars. There are over 1,000 stars packed within about 4 light years of each other in that cluster. At least 14 are visible with decent binoculars.
Wow. Okay, so definitely more than seven.
Definitely. But the naked eye experience, that's different. Most people, under typical conditions, can easily, clearly make out 6 stars.
6. Okay. So where does the seventh come from?
There's a 7th relatively bright star there named Pleione. But, and this is the key, it's physically very close in the sky to another bright star, Atlas. They look like they're almost touching.
Oh, so they blur together.
For many people, yes. Because Pleione is slightly fainter and right next to Atlas, they can merge into what seems like one single, maybe slightly elongated point of light. So yeah, it's called the Seven Sisters, but the actual count, it can easily be 6. Or, maybe 7 for someone with really sharp eyes under perfect dark skies. Some people even report seeing 8 or 9.
So there's this built-in ambiguity, a little bit of a mystery right there in the sky.
Exactly. And that ambiguity, that subtle challenge, is it 6? Is it 7? Is there a missing one?
Right.
That's been a huge driver of human interest and, storytelling for millennia. It practically begs for an explanation, a myth about a lost or hidden 7th star.
So we have this scientifically understood object, a beautiful young star cluster, easy to see, but with this little observational quirk. And somehow that simple reality launches this massive global cultural impact. Why this cluster? Why did it capture imagination so intensely everywhere, leading to all these intricate stories? That feels like the core question we're trying to unpack.
Absolutely. Science gives us the facts, the cosmic stage, you could say, but it's the human response, our need to watch, to ask questions, find patterns, create meaning that's the really captivating part. It speaks volumes about both our observational skills way back when and our fundamental instinct to tell stories.
Astronomy explains the Pleiades as stars, but that does not explain why every corner of the ancient world wove them into myth. To understand their true power, we must listen to the stories humanity has whispered for thousands of years. And these stories, as you said, often circle around this strangely consistent number, 7. You find it everywhere. Ancient Greeks, obviously, but also the Blackfoot, Lakota, Nez Perce peoples in North America, Hindus in India, peoples across Southeast Asia, and, amazingly, Aboriginal Australians. They all consistently talk about 7 stars.
Even when, as we just discussed, 6 is often the easier count for many people with the naked eye.
Right. And what's even more striking is that so many of these myths don't just say 7 stars. They actually include a story element that explains why one might be missing or faint or hidden. How does that happen? How do cultures with no known contact, separated by vast oceans and huge stretches of time, land on the same specific detail?
It's genuinely one of the most baffling and fascinating parts of the whole Pleiades phenomenon, and it has led to this really intriguing theory. It's definitely on the fringe, proposed by some astronomers and cultural researchers, but it's compelling.
Okay, I'm hooked. What's the theory?
The core idea is that this consistent focus on 7 stars, often with that lost star motif, might not be coincidence at all. It could be an echo, a memory of an incredibly ancient astronomical reality.
Ancient how?
They looked at stellar motion. Stars aren't fixed. They move very slowly over vast timescales. These researchers modeled the past positions of the Pleiades stars.
Like winding back the cosmic clock. What did they find?
Exactly. And when they wound it back about 100,000 years, they found something stunning. Pleione, that 7th star that looks so close to Atlas today.
Yeah.
100,000 years ago, it would have been significantly further away from Atlas in the sky. Not just a tiny bit, but enough that it would have been clearly, easily visible as a distinct 7th star to anyone looking up. No ambiguity. Just 7 clear stars.
Hold on. Are you suggesting the story of the 7 sisters could be 100,000 years old? That's mind-boggling. That would make it potentially the oldest story ever told.
But that is precisely the speculation. The theory posits that the core 7 sisters narrative might actually date back to that remote period when seeing 7 stars was the norm. And maybe, just maybe, it originated with early modern humans in Africa.
And then carried outwards.
Carried across the globe as humans migrated out of Africa. Imagine. A story told around campfires, passed down generation after generation, surviving ice ages, crossing continents.
It seems almost impossible for an oral tradition to last that long.
It does seem incredible. But look at Aboriginal Australian oral traditions. We have strong evidence, even scientific dating, related to landscape changes described in the stories, suggesting some of their narratives reliably go back tens of thousands of years, certainly over 65,000 years on the continent.
Wow.
So it proves that complex stories can survive across these immense timescales long before writing existed, predating European contact by an enormous margin. This gives real weight to the idea that maybe some of our oldest, most widespread myths are far older than we think, encoding actual observations from a past we can barely conceive of.
It really changes how you think about myths. What if they're not just stories, but like deep cultural archives?
Mm-hmm.
Preserving data from before recorded history.
It raises profound questions about memory, culture, how we transmit knowledge. It bridges ancient storytelling and modern astronomy in a really unexpected way. It forces us to consider that these narratives might be more than symbolic. They could be records shaped by the very stars they describe.
Okay, speaking of famous stories, let's dive into the Greek version. Most people have probably heard of the 7 sisters in relation to Greek mythology, right?
Yes, it's probably the most well-known version in the Western world. In the Greek myths, the Pleiades are nymphs, 7 incredibly beautiful daughters of the Titan Atlas, the guy holding up the sky and the Oceanid Pleione.
Do we know their names?
We do. They were Alcyone, Seleno, Electra, Maia, Merope, Teget, and Astrope. Each had her own tales, often involving gods like Zeus, Poseidon, or Ares. But one detail often highlighted is about Merope.
What about her?
She's said to be the only one who married a mortal, King Sisyphus of Corinth, the one condemned to push the boulder uphill forever.
Ah, Sisyphus. Right.
And because she married a mortal, some versions of the myth say her star shines fainter than her sister's, as if she's hiding her face in shame or sorrow for marrying beneath her station. It's a very human touch to explain why one star might seem lost or dim.
A celestial soap opera. And what about the main story, the chase?
Right. The most famous narrative involves the great hunter Orion. He became infatuated with the sisters and pursued them relentlessly across the land. To save them from his endless chase, Zeus intervened, transforming them into doves first, and then placing them among the stars as the Pleiades cluster.
And Orion.
He was placed nearby as the constellation Orion, forever chasing them across the night sky, season after season. It's a cosmic drama playing out above us.
And for the ancient Greeks, this wasn't just a story told for entertainment, was it? These celestial bodies were deeply woven into their culture, their religion, even their buildings.
Oh, absolutely. Our research shows that many ancient Greek temples and important ritual sites weren't just oriented to the sun, as you might expect. They were often precisely aligned with the rising or setting of specific stars or constellations, including the Pleiades.
So they were building their sacred spaces according to the stars.
It seems so. It suggests these celestial bodies were integral to their religious practices, linked to specific deities and rituals. Myths like the Pleiades story weren't just isolated tales. They were part of a living tradition, passed down orally for centuries before poets like Hesiod wrote them down. They clearly had a deep, long-standing connection. There's even a suggestion from an ode by the poet Alcman in the 7th century BC that ritual dances performed by girls in the cult of Artemis Orthia might have mimicked the movement of the Pleiades, who were sometimes described as dancing.
Wow, dancing stars.
So yeah, these connections ran deep, influencing architecture, ritual, poetry. The stars were active participants in their world.
Now, this is where things get really interesting with some of the more unconventional interpretations. Some researchers who look into ancient astronaut theories suggest this whole Orion chasing the Pleiades myth isn't just symbolic.
What do they propose?
They interpret it as a kind of coded memory, a historical record almost of humanity's first encounters with visitors from the Pleiades.
So interstellar hunters and refugees, that's the idea.
Essentially, yes. That these myths are preserving, maybe in a disguised way, actual events involving advanced beings from other star systems. Orion isn't just a mythical hunter. He represents maybe a pursuing hostile force. The Pleiades aren't just nymphs. They're refugees or colonists.
And their transformation into stars.
Could symbolize their escape into space. Or maybe how early humans revered them after they departed or arrived. It shifts the whole narrative from myth to a kind of hidden, ancient history of contact.
It's certainly a provocative way to read it. It reframes the entire cosmic chase.
Definitely. Now let's shift continents. Let's go to Mesoamerica. The Maya, the Aztec, other cultures there, they had an incredibly sophisticated understanding of the cosmos, didn't they? It went way beyond just telling stories.
They really did. Their astronomy was deeply practical and spiritual. The Maya, for instance, alongside the Aztecs and Zapotecs, developed incredibly precise calendars. These weren't just for tracking days. They were fundamental to their agriculture, their rituals, their entire worldview.
Like their famous 365-day solar calendar.
Exactly. The Maya called it the Tun. The Aztec called it the Ziyatl. It was crucial for knowing when to plant and harvest maize, their staple crop. But they wove celestial observations, including the Pleiades, into these systems in really intricate ways.
How did the Pleiades feature specifically? I know the Aztec New Fire ceremony was a huge deal.
It was absolutely critical. This ceremony happened only once every 52 years, marking the completion of a major cycle where their 260-day sacred calendar and the 365-day solar calendar aligned perfectly. It was a moment of cosmic renewal or potential doom.
High stakes. And the Pleiades role.
The timing was incredibly precise. The entire ceremony hinged on the Pleiades reaching the zenith, the point directly overhead in the sky exactly at midnight. This precise celestial alignment was seen as the moment the gods decided whether to grant humanity another 52-year cycle of life.
Wow, so they were literally watching the Pleiades to see if the world would end.
In a sense, yes. The lead-up involved days of fasting, extinguishing all fires. Then, at that exact celestial moment, priests would attempt to kindle a new fire, often on the chest of a sacrificial victim. If the fire caught, it was distributed throughout the empire, symbolizing the renewal of time and life. The continuation of their cosmos depended on that Pleiadian alignment.
The precision they achieved, without telescopes or modern clocks, is just mind-blowing. And again, this is where fringe theories step in, suggesting maybe it wasn't just careful observation over centuries.
Correct. The remarkable accuracy of Mesoamerican calendars, especially considering they didn't have a leap year system quite like ours, is often cited by proponents of ancient alien contact.
What's the argument?
They argue that developing such complex astronomical knowledge and calendrical precision purely through ground-based observation would have been extremely difficult, maybe impossible. So they propose that this knowledge wasn't entirely homegrown.
But given
Or taught by what they call lost advanced teachers from the Pleiades. The idea is these Pleiadian beings shared advanced cosmic insights, essentially handing over the blueprints for calendars perfectly aligned with celestial cycles.
And this idea of Pleiadian influence wasn't just about calendars, according to these theories. It extended to rulership.
Exactly. The theory expands, suggesting that ancient rulers, particularly in Mesopotamia, but also implicitly in Mesoamerica, didn't just rule by might or lineage. They claimed direct descent from these Pleiadian beings.
Divine right, but with an alien twist.
Pretty much. This supposed extraterrestrial heritage gave them legitimacy, divine authority, and access to advanced knowledge, setting them apart as cosmic intermediaries. And the proof, proponents say, is in the architecture.
Tumbles and ziggurats.
Yes, they point to the fact that many of these monumental structures, like ziggurats in Mesopotamia, were precisely aligned with the Pleiades. They see these alignments not as coincidental, but as deliberate architectural proof of this cosmic kingship, physical evidence of advanced off-world knowledge encoded in stone.
It's a fascinating thought that this influence might have been wider, maybe even global.
That's part of the argument. Researchers point out that strong beliefs and stories about the Pleiades also pop up across Polynesia, in the Andes, throughout parts of Asia. This widespread, seemingly connected reverence for this specific star cluster across so many diverse ancient cultures is seen as hinting at either a very deep, shared ancient knowledge base or perhaps some kind of common point of contact long ago that bridged geographical divides.
Okay, let's travel across the Pacific now to Japan. The Pleiades have a very special name and place there, don't they? Subaru.
Yes, Subaru. It's a beautiful name, and the meaning itself is quite revealing. It generally translates to things like united, gathered, grouped, or coming together.
Which perfectly describes the star cluster.
It really does. And just like in many other cultures, Subaru wasn't just pretty to look at, it was incredibly practical in traditional Japanese life, especially agriculture. It was a key seasonal marker.
For farming.
Absolutely. Its appearance told farmers when it was time for critical tasks like reaping or sowing rice. It even helped with daily timekeeping, for example. Its position could signal bedtime during night milling activities, so it was deeply integrated into the rhythm of life, a real cosmic clock.
A familiar pattern. What about the Japanese myths? Do they echo themes we've seen elsewhere, or are they unique?
They have their own distinct flavor, definitely, but you can spot some interesting resonances. There's one rather vivid tale from a place called Harasaki. It talks about a concubine, sometimes represented as a carp, which is, a significant delicacy in Japan.
Okay.
In the story, her disemboweled organs float up into the sky and become the 6 visible stars of Subaru. It's quite graphic, maybe hinting at themes of sacrifice or transformation related to sustenance.
Intense.
Any others?
There's another from Hiji Village about 8 heavenly maidens who come down to bathe. One of them loses her feathered robe or her garments, and she can't fly back to heaven with her sisters. She's stuck on Earth.
That sounds familiar. Like the lost sister idea again. Exactly. That motif of a lost celestial being, or one who gets trapped or chooses to stay in the earthly realm, pops up in surprising ways across different Pleiades mythologies worldwide. It echoes that feeling of incompleteness, of something missing from the group.
It's really striking how these narrative threads, a lost sister, a sacred animal, or food source, seem to appear in cultures so far apart. Didn't the famous anthropologist Claude Lévi-Strauss notice things like this?
He absolutely did. Lévi-Strauss did groundbreaking work analyzing myths, especially from South American indigenous cultures. He found recurring structural patterns and motifs like stories about the girl mad about honey, or the significance of certain raw foods like honey or fish, or maybe the carp in the Japanese kale is an equivalent,
Right.
and objects like hollowed out logs.
And he thought these similarities meant something deeper.
Yes, he argued that these parallels, found between myths in the Americas and Asia, pointed towards a common mythological heritage, possibly dating way, way back to Paleolithic times, maybe carried across the Bering Land Bridge during early migrations. It suggests incredibly ancient roots for these core human stories and our ways of looking at the world, including the stars.
So, if we apply that fringe theory lens again, What could Subaru, meaning unity, or the Japanese stories of a lost maiden represent?
From that perspective, Subaru, meaning unity or gathered, is seen as more than just descriptive. It's interpreted as a kind of ancient memory of humanity's origins in the stars, a reminder of a cosmic lineage.
And the missing star.
The missing star, or the trapped maiden, becomes symbolic of a lost connection, a forgotten piece of our supposed shared cosmic family with the Pleiades. It hints at a time in the distant past when our connection to these stellar origins was stronger, more conscious, before something was lost or broken. The stories become less about stars in the sky and more about humanity's own forgotten place in the universe.
Let's circle back to Australia. We mentioned the Aboriginal Australians have incredibly ancient traditions linked to the Pleiades, the Seven Sisters. These aren't just myths, are they? They're deeply connected to the land and law.
That's exactly right. The Aboriginal Seven Sister stories are profound. They're known as Yukurpa or dreaming stories, and they are foundational to law, culture, and spirituality. The sisters are powerful ancestral women.
And their story isn't just set in the sky.
No, their journey is believed to have happened both in the sky and across the earth. As they travel, they are said to have shaped the landscape, creating hills, waterholes, rock formations. Specific features in the land are seen as the physical evidence of their journey, their resting places, or even their transformed bodies. For instance, those massive rocks at Glen Helen Gorge in the McDonnell Ranges for some groups, those are the Seven Sisters.
So the stories are like living maps, tied to specific places.
Precisely. They are integral to songlines or dreaming tracks, complex navigational and cultural pathways that crisscross the continent, encoding knowledge about geography, resources, law, and ceremony. And yes, a very common theme across many different Aboriginal language groups involves the sisters being pursued.
Pursued by whom?
Usually by a male figure, often associated with the Orion constellation. He's known by various names like Niruna or Watinginka. He's often depicted as a lustful or relentless pursuer, a sorcerer sometimes, trying to capture one or all of the sisters.
So the Orion chasing the Pleiades theme appears again, independently.
It appears again, yes. Though the details and interpretations vary widely. Some stories emphasize the sisters' cleverness in escaping, their magic, their solidarity. Others might involve capture or conflict. But the core celestial chase narrative is remarkably widespread in Australia.
And the similarity between this ancient Australian narrative and the Greek myth, it's hard to ignore, isn't it? Especially given the potential age of the Australian stories.
It is incredibly striking. And for fringe theorists, this similarity is considered really strong evidence. They argue it points towards a shared global memory, possibly stemming from those alleged ancient encounters with beings from the Pleiades.
Because the odds of two totally separate cultures inventing such a specific celestial drama seem low.
That's the argument. They suggest it's more likely derived from a single, extremely ancient source story that spread with early human populations. The fact that Aboriginal traditions demonstrably predate any possibility of Greek influence by tens of thousands of years makes this parallel particularly compelling for those seeking evidence of a very old, shared human experience related to these stars. It implies a time when maybe all of humanity shared a common cosmology, perhaps rooted in a real event or observation.
Okay, let's look at the ancient Near East. Mesopotamia, Egypt, the so-called cradles of civilization. They were keen astronomers too. How did they view the Pleiades?
The Pleiades were definitely important there. In Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates, they were often called the Divine Seven, or Sabidi. They were seen as minor gods, or maybe a divine council whose favor could offer protection from harm. Their appearance in the sky marked important points in the agricultural year and times for religious festivals.
So practical and spiritual.
Yes. And the Chaldeans, who were particularly renowned astronomers and astrologers within Mesopotamia, took it even further. They called the cluster Chima, which seems to mean something like hinge or bond.
A hinge. Interesting.
They had this belief that Alcyone, the brightest star in the Pleiades, wasn't just bright, it was the central point, the pivot around which the entire universe of fixed stars revolved. They saw it as the source of cosmic motion, the place where the divine breath originated.
Wow, that's a central role. Does that connect to anything else, like, say, biblical references?
It possibly does. There's that famous line in the book of Job, chapter 38, verse 31, "Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades or loose the cords of Orion?" Many scholars interpret chains of the Pleiades as reflecting this ancient Near Eastern idea of the cluster being a binding, pivotal force in the heavens.
So this significance went way beyond just knowing when to plant crops. It sounds like it touched on cosmic order, divinity, and maybe power. What do the fringe theories say about this region?
Well, building on that Mesopotamian reverence, some fringe research proposes that this deep significance wasn't just about cosmology, it was directly linked to political power through cosmic kingship.
We touched on this with Mesoamerica. How does it apply here?
The theory posits that ancient rulers, especially in Mesopotamia, claimed more than just divine blessing. They claimed actual descent from Pleiadian beings. This wasn't just metaphorical, it was meant to establish their legitimacy, their inherent right to rule, and their possession of superior, perhaps extraterrestrial knowledge passed down through their bloodline.
Like a mandate from the stars.
Exactly. And again, proponents point to architecture as proof. They argue that the precise alignment of major temples and ziggurats to the Pleiades served as a constant public declaration of this cosmic connection, reinforcing the ruler's divine authority and their link to these powerful stellar ancestors. The buildings themselves become testaments to this claimed lineage.
These connections, according to these theories, get even deeper, right? Tying into fundamental cosmic cycles and even the geometry of famous structures.
Yes, they delve deeper still. Some theories propose that the mathematical ratios and precise geometry found in structures like the Great Pyramid of Giza aren't random or solely engineering feats. They argue this geometry is specifically coded to the Pleiades, particularly Alcyone.
Coded how?
Suggesting the Pleiades define a kind of cosmic pyramid template, with Orion also playing a role, and that the cluster acts as a cradle model, or even the gravitational center for our part of the universe. And then there's the precession of the equinoxes.
That huge, slow wobble of Earth's axis, taking about 26,000 years.
Right. Some fringe interpretations see this vast cycle not just as an Earth-based wobble, but as the measure of our entire solar system's orbit around the Pleiades, specifically around Alcyone, which they term our greater parent sun.
So we're not just orbiting our sun, but our whole solar system is orbiting the Pleiades.
That's the radical idea. It positions the Pleiades not just as a pretty cluster, but as the central anchor for our solar system's journey through the galaxy, making it fundamentally important to our cosmic position and evolution. It's a grand, hierarchical view of the cosmos with the Pleiades at a key central point.
Okay, this brings us to probably the most direct and provocative claims about the Pleiades, the idea of actual Pleiadian contact, ancient alien theories. This moves beyond ancient myths into modern UFO lore, doesn't it?
It does. This is where you encounter the Pleiadians, sometimes called Nordic aliens, due to their typical description, tall, blonde, blue-eyed, human-like. In UFO circles and certain New Age beliefs, these beings are said to originate from planets orbiting stars within the Pleiades cluster, often specifically naming the Taygeta system and planets like Era or Temur.
And what's their deal, according to these accounts? Why are they supposedly interested in Earth?
They're consistently described as being vastly advanced compared to us thousands, maybe millions of years ahead, technologically and spiritually. Their alleged mission, it's often framed as benevolent, to help humanity evolve, to stimulate human consciousness.
How do they supposedly do that?
Mostly indirectly, through chosen individuals, contactees, prophets, enlightened beings who claim to receive telepathic messages, guidance, or warnings from them.
So they don't just land on the White House lawn.
Apparently not. These accounts often mention strict non-interference laws that supposedly prevent them from overtly intervening in our affairs, like stopping wars or giving us free energy as long as we stick to our own planet.
But that changes if we go interstellar.
That's the claim. If or when humanity develops the technology to travel freely in space beyond our solar system, they say the rules change. Open contact would then supposedly occur, and they might offer more direct guidance or intervention.
So until then, how are they influencing us from afar, if not overtly? What are the alleged methods?
Primarily telepathy, according to the lore. The idea is they can broadcast ideas, visions, thoughts directly into our subconscious minds, especially while we sleep. This is said to subtly inspire inventions, artistic breakthroughs, spiritual awakenings, nudging humanity forward without breaking their non-interference rule.
Are there specific examples of people claiming this?
Oh, yes. Early UFO contactees from the 1950s, like George Van Tassel, claimed extensive communication and even meetings. The whole Ashtar command narrative is closely linked, describing fleets of ships and channeled messages. Of course, these claims are highly controversial. Many different contactees report conflicting information, and numerous predictions of landings or major events failed to materialize, which obviously undermines credibility for many. But the core idea of Pleiadian guidance persists very strongly in these communities.
And their version of human history. It's radically different from what's in our textbooks, based on this research.
Radically different is an understatement. According to these alleged Pleiadian sources, or the research interpreting them, human history stretches back millions of years. 22 million is the figure sometimes cited. It involves civilizations on other planets in our solar system, like Mars, and a supposed lost planet called Melona, now the asteroid belt.
So Earth isn't our only home.
Not according to this narrative. Earth's current civilization is seen as just the latest rebuild after numerous cycles of development, catastrophe, and crucially, extraterrestrial intervention over millennia.
Intervention like what? Specific events?
Yes, they mention various colonization attempts by different alien groups over the last 100,000 years. They claim responsibility for the destruction of advanced civilizations like Atlantis and Mu, dating it precisely to 9498 BC and blaming it on devastating wars fought with advanced technology. They even claim involvement in genetic engineering, creating the Adam and Eve figures around 13,000 BC, specifically designing a taller, blonde, blue-eyed human type.
That's quite a claim.
It is, and they explicitly state they largely left Earth around 10 AD, marking a shift in their level of direct involvement. The overarching message is often quite blunt. Our accepted history is wrong, our core beliefs are flawed, and major shifts are needed to shake us out of our ignorance. It's a fundamental challenge to our entire understanding of the past.
A total rewrite of history. What about their technology? How do they supposedly zip around the galaxy if they're coming from 400 plus light years away?
The technology described is pure science fiction, or perhaps beyond it. They talk about beam ships, their spacecraft having the ability to convert their own matter into a finer non-physical state.
Dematerialize.
Essentially, yes. This allows them to enter hyperspace and travel faster than light, bypassing Einsteinian limitations. A journey that would take light 500 years might take their ships only 7 hours, according to some accounts.
Wow. Any side effects?
Interestingly, some accounts claim occupants experience rejuvenation during this travel. They supposedly achieved this using complex, multi-dimensional travel paths and powerful energy screens that create artificial gravity and shield them from the usual nasty effects of high-speed travel or time dilation. It's depicted as total mastery over space, time, and matter.
And their view of the universe itself, their cosmology, is it just physical or something more?
It's described as deeply spiritual. They apparently view creation, the ultimate source, as pure spiritual energy. Individual spirit forms emanate from this source and evolve. The universe itself isn't just expanding randomly, it's evolving along a multidimensional spiral path through 7 distinct layers or bands of spiritual energy.
7
again. And cosmic time is measured in great time, units spanning trillions of years, emphasizing an immense, spiritually driven evolutionary process.
Do they have anything to say about Earth's current situation within that grand scheme?
Yes, and it's often quite dire. They purportedly view modern Earth society as fundamentally insane, disconnected from spiritual truths, and rushing towards self-destruction through environmental damage, war, and greed. They warn that this destructive path can only be averted by a massive, rapid shift in mass consciousness.
A spiritual awakening.
Essentially, yes. They often link this potential shift to the current era, the Age of Aquarius, seeing it as a critical window for humanity, a time of intense struggle, but also immense opportunity for spiritual growth and awareness. It's presented as a choice: evolve or perish.
And this research mentions other beings, too, besides Pleiadians. And something about symbols.
Right. The lore sometimes includes other entities. Alloids, for example, are described as aliens who look human because they were supposedly created using human genetic material. They're expected to interact more openly with us eventually. Then there are watchers, portrayed as higher dimensional planetary beings who oversee Earth's resources and humanity's overall evolution, like cosmic guardians.
And the symbols.
The research emphasizes the power attributed to ancient universal symbols: the cross, triangle, square, circle, the serpent or dragon, the tree of life. In this view, these aren't just human inventions. They are archetypes with real power, connected to Earth's energy fields, like chakras, and cosmic energy patterns, reflecting deeper truths taught or understood through this alleged Pleiadian connection.
So taking all these incredibly detailed and far-reaching claims from the research, it really leaves you wondering, doesn't it? Are myths just myths? Or could they be, as these theories propose, these deeply coded messages, echoes of a forgotten history, maybe even ongoing communications from elsewhere? The questions are huge. How could civilizations scattered across the globe, separated by oceans and millennia, all know that the Pleiades contain 7 stars when to the naked eye only 6 can be seen?
It's the crux of the mystery, isn't it?
The Greeks told of 7 sisters. The Japanese called them Subaru. The Maya built rituals on their rising. Aboriginal Australians sang of 7 women chased across the sky. Modern astronomers know that a faint 7th star exists, barely visible under ideal conditions, yet these ancient peoples already counted it as central to their myths.
The sheer convergence is staggering.
The odds of so many cultures landing on this hidden truth by coincidence seem, well, astronomical, pardon the pun. Was this knowledge passed down from a time before history, maybe from a lost, advanced civilization like Atlantis? Or did visitors from the stars themselves, perhaps even from the Pleiades, share secrets that left a permanent imprint on human myth?
It makes you question the very definition of mythology.
The mysteries suggest that what we call mythology may instead be a coded memory of contact with beings far older, far wiser, and far beyond our world. We've explored the extraordinary. But as you know from our episodes, this is the part where the grounded explanations in science also have a voice. There's often a different way to look at these things, right?
Absolutely, and it's just as fascinating in its own way. While the myths and the more, let's say, exotic theories are captivating, there are very solid scientific and anthropological reasons why the Pleiades, specifically, captured human attention so universally. Reasons that don't necessarily need ancient aliens or 100,000-year-old stories.
Okay, so what's the grounded perspective? Why the Pleiades?
Well, first and foremost, let's not underestimate the obvious. The Pleiades are visually striking. They are one of the brightest, most easily recognizable, and frankly, most beautiful star clusters visible to the naked eye.
They do stand out.
They really do. That tight knot of bright, bluish-white stars creates this distinct, shimmering patch against the blackness. It naturally draws the eye. Compared to random scatterings of stars, they have a coherence, a presence. They're easy to spot, easy to point out, easy to remember. That alone makes them a prime candidate for becoming significant in any culture that looks at the sky.
And then there's us, humans.
Yeah.
We seem to have this built-in need to find patterns and make up stories about things, especially big, mysterious things like the night sky. Our psychology must play a role here.
A huge role. We are pattern-seeking creatures. Our brains are wired to find order, meaning, and narratives in the world around us. It's a survival mechanism, probably. So when ancient peoples looked up at something as distinct and noticeable as the Pleiades, appearing reliably year after year, it's almost inevitable that they would imbue it with meaning.
We can't help ourselves.
Pretty much. We connect dots, we tell stories, we link celestial events to earthly happenings. It's a fundamental human cognitive tendency. So a conspicuous object like the Pleiades was practically guaranteed to become a focus of myth, folklore, and cultural significance, purely because of how our minds work when observing the cosmos. No external influence needed, necessarily.
Okay, but what about that core mystery, the 6 versus 7 stars? If it wasn't aliens or a 100,000-year-old memory, how did so many cultures settle on 7 when 6 is often easier to see?
Right, let's tackle that scientifically. While 6 stars are definitely the most prominent, that 7th star, Pleione, is genuinely visible to the naked eye under the right conditions.
What conditions are we talking about?
Primarily exceptionally dark skies, free from the light pollution that plagues us today. Ancient peoples lived under pristine night skies. Second, they spent vastly more time observing the sky than we do. It wasn't entertainment, it was their calendar, their map, their guide. This constant observation would have honed their eyesight and their ability to pick out faint details.
So better skies and more practice.
Essentially, yes. Sustained observation, excellent eyesight, naturally selected or trained, and perfect atmospheric clarity would have made discerning Pleione, that slightly fainter 7th point near Atlas, much more achievable for them than for a casual modern observer. Seeing 7 wasn't necessarily supernatural. It likely reflected keen observational skills developed through necessity and an intimate connection with their environment.
That makes sense. So beyond just awe and storytelling, there was a deeply practical reason for paying such close attention to the Pleiades, wasn't there? Especially for farming societies.
Absolutely crucial. For any society dependent on agriculture, knowing the seasons is literally a matter of life and death. And before written calendars were widespread or precise, the stars were the most reliable clock and calendar they had.
And the Pleiades were a key marker.
One of the best. Their appearance and disappearance in the sky were predictable, reliable signposts. Their heliacal rising when they first reappeared in the dawn sky after being hidden by the sun's glare for a period was a major signal in many cultures.
Like in Greece.
Exactly. We mentioned Hesiod's Works and Days. Basically, an ancient Greek farmer's guide from around 700 BC. He's very explicit. When the Pleiades, daughters of Atlas, are rising, begin your harvest and you're plowing when they are going to set. It couldn't be clearer. This wasn't myth. It was practical advice linking the stars directly to survival, to the cycle of grain planting and harvesting.
So the sky was telling them exactly when to perform these vital tasks.
Precisely. It was their celestial almanac, guiding their labor and ensuring their food supply. The stars weren't just distant lights, they were active participants in the rhythm of life on Earth.
And we saw this same practical connection elsewhere too, right? In Japan with Subaru and with the Mesoamerican cultures.
Yes, the pattern is widespread. Japanese traditions used Subaru's appearance to time rice planting and harvesting, and even for daily tasks like knowing when to stop milling at night. It shows that universal reliance on celestial bodies as timekeepers. And in Mesoamerica, while their calendars were incredibly complex, they were built upon generations of meticulous observation.
So the Pleiades zenith passage for the new fire ceremony. Maybe it wasn't an alien instruction, but just a really good, reliable marker they chose.
It's entirely plausible. The Pleiades passing directly overhead at midnight is a very distinct, easily observable, and highly predictable event. It makes perfect sense that they would choose such a prominent celestial moment to anchor a ceremony of cosmic renewal within their sophisticated but observationally based calendrical system. It's about finding reliable, celestial anchors to structure time, ritual, and life.
It's quite compelling, really. This grounded view shows how these universal observations make perfect sense without needing to invoke lost civilizations or extraterrestrial visitors. There's a real elegance to that connection between human ingenuity and the natural cycles of the cosmos.
There absolutely is. It highlights our ancestors' incredible capacity for careful observation, for sophisticated pattern recognition, and for weaving deep cultural meaning from the world and the universe around them. The enduring fascination with the Pleiades from this perspective is a powerful testament to human intelligence and our profound ancient connection to the rhythms of the cosmos that shaped our survival and our stories.
So as we journey through the myriad tales and scientific revelations of the Pleiades, we're left with this profound question. Does humanity's enduring fascination with these shimmering sisters point to a forgotten truth etched into our collective memory? Or does it simply reflect our innate desire to find meaning and order in the vast, silent canvas of the night?
Or perhaps it's not strictly one or the other.
Maybe it's a beautiful intertwining of both, a testament to the stars' enduring power to ignite our myths, fuel our science, and constantly challenge our understanding of who we are and where we come from in this immense universe. That's it for this journey beyond the known. If the unknown calls to you, do not forget to like, subscribe, and follow. There is so much more waiting to be discovered. And if you really want to help us out, consider becoming a member. With Secret Passage, you will unlock early access to our episodes, our audiobook library, Audiobook Underground, and a rotating list of curated wonders, other videos we recommend for curious minds. For those who want it all, Vault Access gives you everything, plus a board seat where you can request topics for us to explore in future episodes. Your support keeps the adventure alive.